We're taking a trip to go explore some old train tracks and plan a brand new little layout coming up right now on the main track. Hey everyone, my name is Mike and welcome aboard the main track. It's great to have you along as always. Well, as you can see, I'm not in my typical spot in the layout room. We're actually on a field trip today up in Clinton, Missouri, doing some layout planning. I wanted to show you exactly what I had in store for a new project we've got going on. Now, I don't have any model trains on me today, but I've got something pretty much just as good. This right here is MKT caboose number 206, sitting off the old Katy right-of-way here in Clinton, Missouri. Now, you may recall in my last video, I told you about a project I'm going to be working on in the coming months, and that's a second smaller switching layout that I'm going to put in my office studio. That's going to be mainly giving me something to work on a lot of these cold Missouri nights. My main big layout is in my converted garage. It gets very chilly. This layout is going to be based on industrial trackage here in the city of Clinton. So that's why I wanted to bring you up here to Clinton, show you some of the remnants of the railroad and give you an idea of what I'm going to be working on and planning for this switching layout. Now, for those of you that have been tuning into the channel for a while now, I've told you about the history of the railroad that I'm modeling. It's the MKT Sedalia subdivision. And right now we are on the Katy Trail State Park. It's a hiking and biking trail built on the right-of-way of the old Sedalia subdivision. Clinton is the starting point, and right here at the Katy Trail State Park trailhead, they've got some nice interpretive displays. So the trains are long gone, the tracks were removed throughout the 1980s, but at least we have the right-of-way to enjoy. In the exhibit, there is an outdated map, which is a fine thing for me because it shows exactly what I'm modeling. We're kind of in an upside down angle here on the map. Right here we have the Missouri, Kansas, Texas main line, which is the subject of most of my layout. Now, also in Clinton was the Frisco Railroad. It cut diagonally right there. That was the Frisco High Line, the Clinton subdivision running from Springfield to Kansas City. And it crossed the Katy right there toward the middle of town at a spot called North Clinton. And when the Frisco abandoned its High Line in 1978, it left the tracks in place in Clinton for the industrial customers, and that segment of track was deeded over to the Katy so it could continue serving those customers. This here is going to be the subject of my switching layout. It was called the Henry County Industrial Lead. Now, right now we're about a quarter of a mile back toward the southwest from that trailhead. If you look really closely in the trees, there's some remnants of the Katy Railroad still. That right there was one of the old line poles. This right here ahead of us is Sedalia Avenue. This is going to be the beginning point or the ending point of the trail, depending upon how you want to look at it. The spot we're in right now, the trail was built on the main line. There was actually a siding right here, and this was North Clinton siding. It was one of the longer sidings on the Sedalia subdivision. They're one of those line poles that are off to the side. Still standing right there. And you can see exactly on the concrete here where the tracks crossed. Main line was right there. You see where they patched that up. And off to here was where the siding crossed. So you can clearly see on either side. Get on the other side, you can see where things end. Now, it looks like a jungle back there. You definitely get lost if you try to go through there, but in there is the end of the active track. Also back in there was a junction that we showed you with the Frisco Railroad. And as you can imagine, things have changed quite a bit in this spot since the last Katy trains came through here. Take a look at this video right here shot by Kaiser showing one of those Katy trains and what this very spot looked like back in the late 1980s when the railroad was active. And the end of the train right there with the caboose going across Sedalia Avenue and around that curve that is now the Katy Trail State Park. So we're gonna take a little detour, get back in the vehicle, go around a few blocks to the other side of that junction. All right, and this is looking off toward the northeast right here at the former site of North Clinton Junction. Right here was the Katy main line. That is the trees that we were on the other side of a few minutes ago on Sedalia Avenue. Go ahead and take a look at this video right now from the Katy days to see what this used to look like. And this was the interchange track for the Frisco. Right back in there in the clearing of trees is where the Frisco High Line crossed, and there was a diamond back there. There was also another interchange track that broke off right about there, and I went to the south side of Clinton. But here's some old footage we have of a train going around that south leg to serve the Larrabee feed mill, which was in the south part of Clinton. Now, the diamond that had been back there was taken out when the Frisco rails were abandoned, and when Katy was operating this, you simply had this leg right here and the one going off to the south. So that diamond was long gone by the time of the era that I'm modeling in the late 1980s, but for purposes of operation on the layout and being able to get back and forth, I'm going to have that diamond in there. So using my modeler's license, but that's going to be our little secret. All right, while we had to use the historic footage showing you what was on the south leg, the north leg is still in operation right here. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's around there. All right, looking back now toward the North Clinton Junction. That is that track coming around right there. The Frisco High Line, main line, went right through there, kind of that clearing in the trees that's now used for those utility lines. All right, now we're looking back toward the north. During the days of the Katy Railroad, that plant you see right back there, that was Rival Manufacturing. You've probably watched my other layout videos where I've showed you the Rival plant in Sedalia that I'm modeling. Well, Rival also had a plant here in Clinton as well, and they would receive plastic pellets in hoppers. Nowadays, this plant is owned by the Low Champion Brands Oil Company, and this is one of the customers that Missouri and Northern Arkansas brings in tank cars of oil. Now, I've got some additional footage right now to give you an idea of how much things have changed since the Katy. This footage by Ken Kaiser shows one of Katy's old Penn Central GP40s coming out of that old Rival spur with one of the covered hoppers. And there you see that GP40 rounding that curve on the old interchange track to get back to the Katy main line. And now fast forwarding about 35 years, and you can see what it looks like now. Lots of overgrowth once again, but at least the tracks are still here and are still active. That's the good thing. We're going to go now on the other side of that clearing and see some more remnants of the old Frisco High Line and see one other customer that is going to be one that we want to model on the layout. Let's go take a look at that one. Now here we are on the other side of that thicket, and you'd be hard pressed to tell a railroad line even came through here. And the North Clinton Junction just right around that curve. Once again, you can use your imagination, see where that went. because things have changed so drastically. The Henry County Road and Bridge Department has built their facility here in recent years, kind of taken over that spot that had been the right-of-way. All right, and now we're going to head back off toward the north here on the old Frisco right-of-way. You can see some of the patchwork there where the tracks were taken out. This right here is where the Frisco crossed Highway 13 when this was the highway. This is that remaining customer here on the north side of Clinton that was serviced by those former Frisco tracks. But it is a very interesting complex, and when the railroad was operating here, they would send out covered hopper cars of grain products. And this crossing here was guarded by grade crossing signals, flashers with bells. We're going to go ahead and cross the highway right here and see what we can find on the other side. Over here that I'm finding some pieces of trackage out here in the ditch, some old ties, looks like perhaps a base from one of those grade crossing signals. And right here are some other hints that the old Frisco High Line came through here. This right here was a foundation for a relay box that had the electronics in it for the grade crossing signals. Interestingly enough, that has just recently been removed. That had been here all these years. I was up here even a few months ago and saw it right there. If you can see some tire tracks coming through and ending at this spot, so I'm guessing that that was very recently removed. You can also see an old concrete battery box. Now, at the time when this was rail served, according to MKT trackage plans, this was called Henry County Farm Supply, but I'm seeing a sign down there at the end of that mill showing Hankins Grain Company. So at some point things changed hands, or they at least changed names. So you can imagine back in the day when this complex was still rail served, those hopper cars coming in and providing quite a bit of business, especially during the harvest season. And so this actually is a very interesting complex. As you can see, it is made up of several different grain bins, grain elevator legs. Looks like here we've got a couple of large-sized ones and several smaller ones there in the middle of the complex. I can imagine building quite a few of the Walthers grain bins for this complex, and also some of the ones made by Rick's Products. They've got some that are a little bit smaller. And I went back a little farther and look what I found. Found some rail still in place, spiked to the ties. Not sure why this little segment was left in place here. Well, unfortunately, we're losing our light here in Clinton. You gotta love these winter days where it gets dark so early, but we're gonna go ahead and get on the road. A quick update on what the plans are for the layout. The space in that room I have, my office studio, is gonna provide an area of about 11 by 11, so possibly an L-shaped layout of that size. We hope you'll join us in the coming months as we make progress on that layout as well as the main Katy layout. We'll see you next time right here on the main track.